Greetings. Let me take a sip of this. Drinking some cacao. Children and I are getting the day started. Welcome to this live stream. If you're watching this on YouTube, thank you for clicking this video and for watching. Today I'm going to be talking about why I got 2 ultrasounds, right? I'm going to be speaking about, good morning, peace. I'm just here starting the day with some cacao, and I'm just going to speak about a needed process today. I'm not sure if you could hear that because my low battery. Morning. I don't know where my charger is. Yeah, it is. It's a great topic. There's just a lot that's not needed in general in that process. One, it's free. So you don't have to constantly go to appointments and worry if you don't or do have insurance.
Juice.
Would you like some juice? Here you go. And it saved me a lot of time. I had a hands-off pregnancy both times, and a lot of people focus on having a free birth or like home births now, which is great. I totally support. And a lot of that is based on wanting to get away from the medical industrial system. But a lot of people don't talk about being hands-off during your pregnancy also, because it can be quite tedious having to go and constantly get scanned and poked and prodded at and opened, like literally spread open and observed and have all this blood drawn, when most people kind of avoid going to the doctor in their life unless they really need to go. I mean, at least the people that I know, they don't go unless it's an emergency or if they really need to have something looked at. So I think how people treat their health, like if they're advocates for themselves and if they put that first, they'd have a different experience if they transfer that over to pregnancy and not just, the holistic practices, like, drinking their herbs and maybe doing their yoga, but really being sovereign throughout that process. In addition to having these home births, I think that's where the radicalization will happen in that field, when the entire process is self-governed. And it's definitely possible. There are women who've done it before. I just don't see it spoken about as much, so I wanted to talk about that a bit more today, as I'm also multitasking with these little ones. So yeah, my first pregnancy, I found out when I was about 2 months, and at the time I was homeless in LA. And it's so funny because Spirit sends me on these quests. The times where I haven't been quote unquote without a home have been for me to explore and to get to know myself better. And it was for a month, and it was honestly a great time because I was in a beautiful place when it happened. So it was there was some compensation there. And it was foretelling because I kept meeting pregnant women who needed care and who were in these shelters, and we befriended each other. And during that time, I just felt really called to talk about the things that I was learning and to see where I can find my balance with how I wanted to eat in that space and how I could find resources. And that ended up, transferring when I had my baby, or when I found out I was pregnant, because I knew then that I wanted to provide a certain quality of lifestyle during that time. There's something known as fetal imprinting, where during your gestation in the womb, you are picking up the subtle experiences that your mother has, and they are affecting you on subtle and not so subtle levels. So during that time too, I was away from everyone I knew, and I didn't really have the experience that maybe most people have, where they, go, they get the first ultrasound and that confirms pregnancy. I didn't get my first ultrasound until I was 6 months pregnant. One, because I knew I was pregnant. Excuse me. If you haven't watched my first video on how I became pregnant or my spiritual pregnancy, you can watch it on my YouTube channel. The link to my channel is in my bio. But in that video, I talk about how I discovered I was pregnant, and I'll tell you more about that here also. But like I said, I was homeless during that time, and I was supposed to meet with a friend and kind of crash at her place for a little bit, or I was experiencing homelessness, and she had some kind of event or something she had to go to, and she wasn't home, and so I was waiting for her to come back, and I was charging my phone in the hallway. And this is just like a studio, like an art studio or someplace. It's not like a real place or an apartment. So, but you can put whatever you want in your space when you're working there. And I was waiting. Apparently, I was outside this man's door because that was where the outlet was. And he came up to me and asked me if I was waiting for him. And I'm like, why would I be waiting for you? I didn't put it together in my mind that I was in front of his door. So he asked me if I would like to come in for a cup of tea. I do my check-in, make sure, he's good vibes, and I really appreciated that, so I didn't have to sit on a hard floor. And he made me a cup of tea, and he brought me a cup that said proud new mom. And I side-eyed it because I hadn't factored in pregnancy. I knew I was tired and exhausted, but I thought it was from what I was experiencing. And I was talking to my friend about pregnancy at that time. We were texting each other about the topic. So I was like, okay, it started planting a seed, something's happening here. And the tea bag itself had another quote about motherhood and having a child. So fast forward, all this you can look at in that video. Yeah. Breastfeeding time. Fast forward to that next 9 months of my life, I ended up moving in with family again. And I found out essentially how most women are typically treated when their family or their friends or anybody discovers that they're pregnant. And I did my best to combat those experiences with my knowledge, with my behavior, and by supporting myself. I didn't have a doula until the end of my pregnancy, which was a great blessing. I don't even know how it happened. I just had a doula. It was divinely appointed, and she was a community doula who was awesome, and really helped me to anchor that experience beautifully and form some friendship. Are you gonna drink? Here you go. So, what I mean by defining myself is from people's comments, from their opinions, from all these ideas of what should be happening to your body when you're first having a baby. Hi, good morning, or good afternoon or night, wherever you are. And I just said no. And that was challenging. Again, a lot of people are familiar with the idea of creating spaces for women to birth and for, birthing people, however you identify. I speak with women, and it's not to offend anyone. That's just my viewpoint in the lens, and it's just easier than having to edit every word when I'm speaking. But there is just so much welcoming space, I guess, for people to birth openly and freely. Yet when we are pregnant, there's still so much mentally that has to shift for people who are not pregnant in order for pregnant people to feel well. And I mean, they'll feel how they need to feel regardless, but it would be helpful if there was more open space during pregnancy for women to be well received, to not be projected on about the traumatic birth experiences, to not be forced or convinced that what's happening in their body just because it's peaceful means that something is wrong or suspicious. because you can have a peaceful pregnancy, and you will know if something's wrong, just like you know if you're sick or if something's off in your body. You get the sensation, and yes, that is the last usually indicator for some people of what's going on when you have this symptom. But it's not like when you're in tune with your body, especially if you normally take care of your body, if you've been someone who maybe doesn't like to have medicine, so you come up with your own like herbs, or if you exercise frequently, or if you do yoga or have some kind of breathwork practice or some kind of meditative practice where you are in tune with exactly how you feel, where that energy or shift is coming from, and how to reset, how to repair after you have an imbalance. It should be very easy for you to be in tune with yourself during pregnancy and know and assess how you feel without needing to prod the baby. Also, ultrasounds can be highly inaccurate, especially later on in pregnancy. They really become redundant. It is nice to have a confirmation, that you are pregnant, and especially when you get these things from spirit and you wonder, am I going crazy? Because sometimes you'll have dreams about being pregnant and you're not, or you'll think you're having a certain amount of babies and you're not, and you maybe want to prepare in some kind of way and be in control. And it really is a great opportunity for you to surrender control and to wait and to be patient, to be surprised, and to trust that regardless things will work out. Because again, these tools are fairly recent as far as we know. I believe the ancients had really high forms of technology that just didn't look like how we imagine our technology to look like now. But it is possible. So I didn't have the ultrasound again until I was 6 months, and that was because I wanted to have a home birth, but I didn't have my own home. I was sharing space with others. And other people were fearful, and they would threaten me. They would threaten to report me, that I would be abusive, that they would take my child. And they would do this in joking ways, but were also very serious. They, my family didn't understand that this was what I was passionate about and what is natural. There was so much fear about, what if this happened? What about the baby? And I think a lot of people would get threatened that they're not good parents or that they're putting their children in danger, and it's gaslighting, and it's not true. And just so you know, home births are completely legal in all 100 states, and if you don't have a midwife attendant, that's fine. You don't have to have a midwife. That would technically be a free birth. Excuse me, y'all. Okay, that would technically be a free birth, y'all. And with any type of delivery, there is risk, right? It doesn't matter if you're in a hospital. It doesn't matter if you are in a home birth. It doesn't matter if you end up giving birth in the car, right? Because this happens. And you could have any kind of outcome in any place, right? People are going to hospitals having even more traumatic births than they would if they were at home. So it's not to say that one is necessarily better. Of course, certain environments create certain results when it comes to birth and their outcomes. So ideally, you want to be in a place where you feel comfortable, where you feel safe, where you can progress at your own rate and your own pace. However, not everyone has that ability. At least I didn't have that ability in my time. And if I did, it would have came with a lot more stress. And I wanted to be able to relax through my pregnancy because I was doing that by myself, essentially. I was around people, but they didn't really know what my vision was and where I was going. And I did have support, during my birth, which I'm grateful for. But as far as the mindset, I am the one in my lineage who is answering this call to return to that way of being. So I was really glad that I didn't have as many ultrasounds. I had the ultrasounds again because I found my middle space of giving birth in a birthing center. Not a birthing center, which is a hospital room that's been reformed, an actual birthing center. Okay, that's just with midwives who are trained for natural birth. I lived in Maryland at that time. There were only 2 birthing centers in the entire state, which is completely mind-boggling to me. how there can be so little. And a lot of states are like that, where they don't have a lot of birthing centers, or the birthing centers are really suites and hospitals. But I was really grateful to have that experience. The place closed down shortly after I gave birth, but the staff was amazing. And I wasn't even there that long because, again, I wanted to have a home birth, so I wasn't even going to appointments with people. I went to, like I said, 2 ultrasounds. So the first time I went to an OBGYN, that was one of the first times I went in my life. I was taught how to take care of my own body as a child. I never had to go and do any other treatment outside for any reason. So I ended up having my first pap smear. And I talked to them about it. I didn't know how much I could decline as much at that time. And they said it was just a cotton swab thing. And I asked and I clarified and I made sure, like, okay, so what's going to happen to me exactly? And the person left out information. Like, they didn't tell me that they would scrape my skin. I didn't research it at the time before because I didn't expect to have it. And so after that, I was like, okay, this is what people are talking about when people are doing things without their permission, without their consent to them. And I recorded that whole thing. So, like, I have audio of that. But I just, from there, I was like, no, like, this is not okay. Like, people just going in and just taking samples of my, my uterine lining, like, weird. Even if it's for testing or to make sure I'm healthy, like, especially if you don't specify, yes, we will take a sample, scrape off some of the skin using this tool, and then use the swab to take it. So I'm like, what the fuck is this? And it was really, it was really an invasive sort of feeling. But I'm glad it happened because it didn't happen during my birth, and I was able to, it just was the one evidence that I needed to say, like, nah, I don't want this happening for me. So then, from there, I decided that I would continue my journey of being without those things. And I had to get the ultrasound because I was going to give birth in the birthing center. And to give birth in the birthing center, you need some kind of documentation that you are indeed pregnant, and you have to meet it by a certain amount of weeks. I was still very late in my pregnancy also. Like, I was in my 3rd trimester by the time I even found a space, and so things were kind of rushed. But they still wanted to work with me, and it ended up being beautiful. And again, they're not, these places, like, especially a hospital, if in the event that you need an emergency, they will not deny you care if you really, really need it. You can show up in the midst of it and go and register. Now, it may take a little bit of time, but they will get you help. So it's not like things are not accessible if you don't do things a certain way. It's just perhaps how you're viewed and treated, and you may have to really be able to vouch for yourself if you take that route. Because if they don't know what you want, then they'll probably just go and do what they feel is best for you. So having that preparation and awareness will make a huge difference, I feel, for you, if you choose that route. Yes. Also, me getting over a little cold here. So when I had my second ultrasound, and they would do the glitter test to test baby's heartbeat and make sure that everything is in accordance, that baby's growing right. Again, it's not always accurate, right? You're using waves to look and find if baby's in the optimal position, if there's enough fluid in the amniotic sac so that, there's no dryness and baby's comfortable, and all these things that contribute to the health factor of baby. But we know baby is also a living, sentient being who's intelligent, who knows when they're to be born, and how to communicate when they're in distress. And mom will also feel that because we are linked on a spiritual level, on an emotional level, and a physical level, not just when we're pregnant, but for years after that. No. So that second ultrasound was just to have to unfold, and I wasn't even sure if I wanted the second one at that time, but after the second one I was like, no, I don't really need it. And it really didn't do much. I mean, it's nice to have like a picture and all, but baby's coming. Like I really was more focused on, you know, having the least amount of interventions possible throughout my whole pregnancy. And that was quite nice because I wasn't bothered really. And I was making my own skincare stuff. I was making my own like heating pads and doing my stretches. I felt really, really creative. I was going on walks. I was just sort of in my own zone. And whenever I didn't have this much morning sickness at all with Nova. And it felt great. I would just have some ginger chews, or I'd suck on some limes, and that was it. I mostly would just heave, and I never really actually got sick. With Phoenix, oh my god, I was so sick most of the time, and I had peppermint oil all the time to smell. I kept it near me. That was like my saving grace. Best with certain teas and with water. But I think it's something interesting. I don't know. I've heard this for a lot of people, that having a boy can be a totally different experience of pregnancy than with a girl. And the boys tend to really make sure to let you know that they're on the way. And they he carried bigger for me than with Nova. I was also in a different space in my life too, because I was transitioning from being plant-based or vegan when I was pregnant with Nova versus just eating what I felt was best for me when I was pregnant with Phoenix. So that's also a factor. And with Phoenix, I had one ultrasound. Actually, no, I think I had 2 with him also. Like 2 became my limit, and that was like also early on, just confirming again what we wanted and you know, what was happening. And it was a pleasant experience to know that he was here. And you know, sometimes it can be a really special moment, so I don't want to deter anyone. I just want them to be informed and to know that, you know, ultrasounds have effects on babies too, because sound affects us. Vibration affects us also. And it's, a lot of it, quote unquote, is still not determined or is unknown, but really, you know, you try having someone blast sound waves at you and see how you feel. You know, we've seen it in all the comics and all the superhero movies, that these things can be quite irritating. So, again, it's not necessary. And there are more traditional ways of listening to the baby in the womb. The names escape me at the moment because I'm surrounded. But there's a form of stethoscope that traditional midwives will put to their ear, which is basically, it looks like a trumpet or a horn. And they listen to what's happening to the baby with their ears and be able to hear baby's heartbeat and check things. And they do a lot of the adjustments with their hands, and they read the energy. So, can you stop that, please? That's not very kind, okay? Is there something that you need? Yes. Coughing. Is there something that you need? Yes, I will help you. 1 second, y'all. So, wow, this is nice. Here you go. Mm-hmm. One moment. Thank y'all for your patience. You need another one?
Yes.
Here you go.
Thank you.
Welcome. Okay. You can pick a video here. So, so yeah, that is not the most necessary part of pregnancy. And I'll talk into other ways or other things that aren't really as necessary during pregnancy. If you want to be minimal, if you want to have a very spiritual and personal experience during your pregnancy that doesn't involve other people being the authority in your life and governing and deciding or telling you what's happening in you, because you know what's happening in your body because it's your body. So you are the first, and you are divinely appointed to care for your body before anyone else. So grateful for those who are in that profession and who are helpful and who can give you an ultrasound when it's absolutely needed in the event that something may be going wrong. And for that reassurance. It's nice, but you do not need it, and you do not need like 10 or 15 in one pregnancy. You don't always have to go each week to see what the baby is doing, okay? It just save you peace of mind, keep you balanced, and here we go. Let's clean this up. They are keeping me busy, y'all. Yeah, but peace of mind, it will keep you balanced. And it's just less of a hassle having to go to all these appointments all the time. There's a lot of people there, and you don't know when you're going to get seen. You're on rotation with different doctors, and depending on where you go, this is just like a standard general experience that you could have. If you have a midwife, you would go more likely to just be with her for all of your appointments. So, yeah. And I only got those two because that's what I felt I needed. I didn't feel like I needed extra confirmation. It would have been just redundant. And I was going through that process by myself, so I didn't really feel... Well, I was going with that to that process with my baby, right? And I didn't feel like I needed anything else because it wasn't the essential. So yeah, having that experience, though, where I wasn't constantly being monitored and I wasn't taking tests, I saw people glitch out. They were so confused why I didn't have this blood test and take this glucose test and do this and this and this and this. It's like, because I didn't need it. It wasn't an essential. And some people will look at you a certain way. Some people may be irritated with your choice, and that's just because they want to do what they feel they know is best, and that's okay. But like, I know what's best for me, and I don't have to do anything. You can literally decline any of these things. The best thing for you to do is to get it in writing so that you can have it documented that you refuse, because some people will try to they'll try to pull one on you if you say no. So you gotta just be mindful of that and making sure you document that, and or you have a witness. Okay. And if you have a witness to assist you, my doula came to an appointment with me, I think my second appointment, which is really nice. And we got to just talk about things. She got to see part of the process and how we handled things. And me being a doula, it's like being a doctor, like going to a doctor's appointment. So you kind of doctor yourself and like, what did you consider this? Did you do that? That's how it was. Yeah, so it's not necessary, really. And I think it's really beautiful that people want to do things themselves, and it takes tremendous courage to do that. To not feel like you have to rely on things, even when it's scary, when you feel like death is literally a possibility that can stare you in the face or be some kind of fate, and know that also life is not the same portal, it's not the same doorway, and you can decide, to be willing to receive whatever comes and to know that you're cared for. Because more often than not, birth is completely safe and your body knows exactly what to do. If something goes wrong, you'll know. Your spirit will know. Your baby's spirit will know, and it will communicate with you what's happening. You'll be able to make decisions then from that point. If you're not just moving based from fear and you genuinely have a need to make these shifts, there's so much support and opportunity. And for that small percent that does experience mortality, it is still something that can be, transitioned through, because these cycles continue eternally on this plane. So that is a part of the experience. For some, as tough as that may be for some people to hear, it is just a truth of what can go on in any major transformation involving the body and also bringing in life. It's a tremendous endeavor to receive a spirit in your body and to give it form and function and, program it, teach it, right, and nurture it and watch it go off on its own. We really are incredible beings where we can continue to create these bodily machines to operate our spiritual evolution. So it's pretty cool. But yeah, I got the most out of that experience personally because of the things that I mentioned. And I did the same thing pretty much with my second baby. Although he ended up being born in a hospital, I still had a really great experience because of the information that I had. There are some things I look back on that were, a little bit less favorable or as pleasant, but given the circumstances and knowing what I know about birth in the hospital, I learned a lot. I learned that it doesn't always have to be very super traumatic. There are certain things that are not necessary and that could be run more smoothly, but I had compassion for myself and the staff at that space for doing their best, and for still taking care of me. And I just see the ways where even more I valued having my doula, and I value being a doula, and bless you. And I didn't have a doula this time, so it would have been a different experience if I still had that support, and I'm grateful for that contrast. But I still didn't have as much intervention. It was very peaceful overall for the process. I had a fast and furious birth this time compared to my first birth. My first birth, I was laboring for a couple of days on and off of stalling. And with him, I knew, like the night before, I had a conversation with him, with his spirit, with Phoenix's spirit. And I said, I really want to give birth to you at home, because I didn't get to have a home birth the first time either. But I just feel like we are both ready, because I'm stretching to capacity, and I feel like you're waiting for us because this is what I want. But if you're ready to come, I'm not going to hold you back. We'll make the best out of the situation and go from there. And literally my labor started that night. And in the morning I was off to the hospital and gave birth to him in the evening. So that was that. So you can really communicate with these spirits, I'm telling you. And clearly I know it was communicating with me before she was here. So that's also a perk of not always prodding. You get to make room for that divine intervention to work through things around you and to find other ways to talk to you, to speak to you, and to inform you about what's going on. You will know. You will know. Yeah, but those are the things. That's why I had 2 ultrasounds. Having a free birth pregnancy, not just the actual birth, but having a free pregnancy, a wild pregnancy, is unlike anything I've ever experienced. And if you know that you're low risk, you don't have any pre-existing health conditions or things that could debilitate you or concerns, go for it. And it doesn't mean that you never should see anybody, but really try and minimize the amount of those experiences that you're having, and just allow yourself to be present in that moment, because it will make a huge difference on your mindset and the things that you value. And I'm very certain that it will impact your outcomes as well, because you have learned how to govern yourself in a very empowering time where only you can give birth to your children and your lineage. And especially if you're giving birth the first time, you only give birth the first time once. Your next birth will be different, and however many times you decide to go through this experience. But I think there's nothing more empowering in general than being able to decide for ourselves what we feel is important. And I really hope that this was helpful for you, or at least informative, or something that was really interesting to listen to, because this is what I'm going to be speaking about more. I really enjoy talking about my experiences with birth, but also knowing that it can help somebody else or someone like you is a great benefit. So thank you for listening. I will post this on my channel. If you have any questions or comments, please share this below. Let me know if you had ultrasounds during your pregnancy or if you didn't, if you ended up having a free birth or not, if you didn't have any care at all. Let me know how you felt that was versus when you did have care, or if you had care in the beginning with another pregnancy and you decided not to have any care the next time. What did you feel was the result of that, and how did that benefit you? Thanks again for watching. Peace.